they nourish their body through exercise and through diet and through meditation and mindfulness and all these techniques. But if you still have a bunch of junk in you, only so much of that is going to take.
When you get into a situation where you're trying to bombard the system with nutrients, all you're going to create is more stress. And could possibly turn on things the body is not ready to turn on, causing problems. The idea is that you do things the right way.
As a society awakened a little bit to the fact that we do manufacture so much stuff, and we've kind of gone away from what's good for our bodies naturally.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Signal Fire Radio, a show about ambitious leadership where a bunch of military veterans and former police officers get together and destroy the villain of self-doubt by having encouraging conversations designed to feed your mind, strengthen your body, enrich your spirit, and grow your tribe. We're on Season 3, Episode something, and as always, I'm your co-host, Rob Renz. You can find me on Instagram, Rob_Renz, or at Signal Fire Radio. And I'm joined by my other co-host, the esteemed Brandon Pettyjohn, Esquire, with some updates from the mat in Indiana. People are wanting to know.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. Yeah, no, I traveled to Indianapolis for a jiu-jitsu tournament, mostly because my family's from there, and it was an excuse to go up. Didn't do so well in the gi. I got third. There was only 3 people, so, it tells you how that went. But no gi, I won, so, that was...
Was it really only 3 people?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost one match, 0-1. It was questionable. But it's my fault.
You knew you were going to get something going up there.
Yeah, there's a participation trophy there. Yeah,
I love it.
This new generation loves that.
You said prior to us starting the show, you feel more like a man now than ever.
I finally have
Can you let the Signal Fire Radio listeners know?
Visible cauliflower ear.
Yes.
It hurts really bad. And I feel not the going to war or making children, but this is what makes me a man.
This is it. Yeah. This is it, the cauliflower ear. And we are sandwiched in between. We've got a great little kind of sandwich action going on here.
This is
it's not a double-decker, I guess.
Yeah, it's...
You guys are flanked. Chris and Brandon, y'all are the Renz sandwich right now.
Ooh.
Because I have my wife, who was, I think, on episode 2 or episode 3. 5? It was our most downloaded episode, babe. So welcome back. We have Jennah Cutting, FNP, from Trinity Wellness Center.
Not to be confused with FNG.
And we have Chris Bradley from Cape Fear Investigative Services. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. What you been up to?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Same, always.
Snooping and
pooping. Taking pictures.
We actually have 3 of the 5 Renz family members here, because Brody's sitting around here somewhere too as well. Brody the doodle dog.
Behind me.
Is he behind you? He found Mom. He found his well.
How old is Brody?
Brody is 9.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
He's a good boy.
Hey,
so if you're watching on YouTube, first, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, turn on notifications, but you might see Brody's head just pop up every once in a while in between. And that's what social media algorithms really, really love. They love dog content. I'm sorry,
He's
Chris.
cute.
We need to take a minute and admire the roadmap of his forearm.
Yeah.
He's so vascular. Put your forearm up. Good. Pull it up there. Look at that.
Look at that.
Wow.
We're back.
I think I can.
We're coming off a weight cut, baby.
Yeah? Are you? You slimmed down a little bit?
A little bit,
Yeah.
It's like back roads to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
On his forearm.
Is this a nurse?
Taking
Like,
the 210 all the way up.
That's it.
as a nurse practitioner and former full-time RN, is this like your dream?
Yeah.
what I've always
You
been
can
told.
hit that all day.
She
Whatever-
does
wherever
that.
you want.
She sits on mine because I'm a pretty,
Look at you.
I'm a pretty
Yeah, you're a
veiny
vascular
guy.
guy.
I'm a veiny guy.
He is.
So she'll sit here and mess with it, like in church and
Are you
stuff.
veiny
and
all
she'll be
over?
like, pretty veiny, dude.
Like your
You
legs?
already know this. Yeah. I got some veiny legs, man. I don't know. I'm just vascular dude. But she'll sit here and mess around with it and just play with it, and I kind of dig it.
I gave him shit yesterday because he posted a story of him cutting down a tree.
I showed
Yes.
her. I put out a thirst trap. Go to my Instagram and check it out.
I commented on or sent him a message and put in quotes. I said, "Here, babe, take this picture real quick so, before the arborers come."
Before the tree guys come back.
Exactly.
No, I took down 11 trees by myself
for
with
you.
my friend Hal, and I tell you what, cauliflower ear is how you know you've arrived at manhood.
Poison ivy is how Rob
I got a little poison ivy, but no, dropping a 60-foot pine tree is a thrill. It is an absolute rush.
Were you ready for another kid? Seeing him do that?
They actually were complete when I went back. So I missed it.
I sent her the pictures though, and actually, rumor has it that she might have been impregnated just by me being there.
It's like a pollination. I'm not environmental science. Yeah, just trust the science.
Yeah. The wind. The wind does it now.
Life-size oil paintings in the new house eventually.
Yes.
Chopping
especially the vines coming off the trees.
The light was so perfect; it made it look like I was actually muscular. Like it made me look bigger than what I am in real life.
The rest of the story can be found on OnlyFans.
Oh, bless. Yeah, dropping a 60-foot pine tree makes me feel like a real man, as does this notice that we got served under the door here at Signal Fire Radio.
Yeah, let's not talk about that, though.
There you go. We're not going to talk about it. DM me if you want to know more about it.
There's a potential issue there.
Yeah, there could be. I'm not going to admit to anything. Allegedly. Fantastic episode lined up. Jen, babe, last time you were on, we had a wide-ranging conversation.
We did.
About alternative psychiatry.
We did.
And you were like brand new into the practice then, so kind of like
moderately,
you've been doing it for like 18 months or so.
I had been brought on to start the ketamine infusion center that we have in Leland, and we had opened that up and started IV ketamine therapy for major depression, PTSD, that kind of treatment, and
TBIs too, right?
You can, but we were not specifically targeting that. But yes, there's some good neuroregenerative documentation on ketamine, so it's great for rebuilding those brain pathways and getting those nerve endings wiggling again.
I like wiggly nerve endings.
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So ketamine therapy, is that a relatively new therapy, or has it been around for a while?
So ketamine's been around since the 50s. It was originally like a derivative from angel dust, fun fact. And they found that it didn't have a respiratory suppression associated with it. So it launched as an anesthetic. So it's used in anesthesia commonly to put people under. They use it a lot in children because you don't have that depression there. It actually opens up the alveoli and you can actually get better oxygen exchange. So, more of the dabbling in alternative is finding that it is neuroregenerative and then using it in major depression to rewire the brain. So it's a little bit of a hack now. They've kind of played around with it more and more. There's tons of research. There is a prescription, more commercial option, which is Spravato, which is a nasal-ary S-ketamine, which is an isomer of ketamine, that is actually showing in the studies to be comparable outcomes to IV as far as the major depression world goes.
We're gonna send this to Spravato people. That way we can get sponsored.
Let's get on that.
Spravato.
We're trying. We need
trying. We are just putting it all out there. We got Monster, Spravato, Spindrift, Shaka Tea. Sorry, Brandon, I interrupted a question.
No. I was just gonna ask you if is it more cost prohibitive for the IV therapy, or is it like I guess what's the play?
It depends on where you live. The IVs are expensive, but it is in the acute phase less time consuming. So it's about one a week on a 6 series. So you do one a week for 6 weeks. Where you're looking at for Spravato and how they've done all their studies is you're doing about 2 a week for 4 weeks, 1 a week for 4 weeks in the acute phase.
But it's all self-administered?
It's not. It is
really?
administered in office. You spend about 2 hours in the office. So I do it at my office up in Porter's Neck, and my patients are there doing. You're basically dropping into this kind of disassociative state and working on your traumas or your depression or who it is that you want to be, and you can actually rewire the brain towards that. And you even have people kind of looking into it from a standpoint of, like, let's just say they have oddities that they just don't like about themselves, and kind of working that brain rewiring pathway. So that's not what we treat, but
sure.
How does the guided therapy part go?
We don't do guided therapy up at Porter's Neck, but I definitely get patients with a cognitive behavioral therapist, and they're doing a lot of rewiring on their own. And so I give them journals, and they spend some time with journals, and they take that to their therapist. And then while they're in, I'll have patients, they're like ready. They're like, I'm going to work on this today. And I'm like, awesome, do that, because you are in control with this bravado. You're not so disassociated that you can't, you're just kind of there for the ride. You're tumbleweed. You're actually in, and you drop into the disassociative state, and you can start moving things in the way that you want them. So very controlled, which
Unlike
is nice.
some of these other like psychedelics,
sure,
that are floating
you're
out
at
there, like
the
ayahuasca or
psilocybin.
Yeah,
like,
you're
you do a
totally
hero's dose, you're gone, right? Like your brain is
you're
not
more
alive.
at the mercy of the trip.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So is there is there a need with ketamine to have like a Sherpa, someone to guide you through it?
Good question, Brandon.
No. So we're getting some good. I did do some testing at our other office when we were doing the IV, and actually having some patients say yes, it's okay for a therapist to come in and do some guided stuff. And the results seem to be pretty beneficial. However, if patients pretty much know and they're doing therapy during the week, they can pretty much go in and work on what they need to. And I can keep them in like quiet little pods, or maybe multiple patients in there, but it is a very low stimuli environment in which they can work on whatever it is that they need to.
So you're saying it's not a magic pill. I have to still do something.
You still thought, yes, amazing, right?
We've talked to a lot of people. I think we just want that. What's the one thing that makes this all better?
No wands. There's no magic wands.
So 2-hour session, typically 2-hour session.
2 hour session.
When they're done, walk out, good to go, drive. Can they drive? They
No. So you have to have to be dropped off. You don't want to be operating any machinery. We don't like you to take certain medications. We kind of go over that before that can be counterproductive to your treatment. But patients are seeing about number 4, huge impact on their life. I really see a change. I had a lady just the other day who was like, I took my daughter to the beach, and then we went to Build-A-Bear, and then we did this. And, she was like, that's new for me, that being able to have the motivation and the will with their severe debilitating depression, spending time with their kids is like monumental in this population. So, that was a win for her.
You couldn't talk about it going to Build-A-Bear, could you?
I've never send this to the Build-A-Bear people. Yeah. Like, hey, you're welcome.
We'll drop making bears.
Anecdote time. Did you ever respond to a call of somebody on angel dust?
No.
No?
Not. PCP.
PCP, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the one PCP was wild.
Was it?
Yes.
Did he have clothes on?
No, he did not.
Never have clothes.
They never have clothes on.
Never.
What is it about PCP and not having clothes?
What was impressive was how he was putting holes in the wall.
Really?
Yeah.
Or picking up
If
cars.
I use my imagination?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was he humping holes
He was
in
humping holes in the
Yes.
drywall.
No feeling, baby.
Oh my God.
He made the hole?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
Wow.
With sound effects too. It was
That's
great. He was like,
incredible.
doo, he was like banging in the wall. I mean,
Wow.
What did you do? Did you
So there
like
was
how many officers
5.
did it take to restrain him?
5.
Wow.
So naked guy, hit with a taser. Taser had no
It doesn't work.
Zero effect on him. This guy was 5. Roughly, he was about my size, maybe a little bit more weight wise. He was about 210 at 5'8". We got him outside the door. We were able to get him on the ground. I was the smallest of the 5 officers that was out there. And he was doing push-ups with all 5 of us on his back.
Wow.
So me knowing a little bit about joint manipulation, he got down into a push-up position. He got down a little low. When he did, I yanked his arm out, pulled his arm out, trapped the elbow, bent the wrist back, and he was doing 1-arm push-ups with everybody still on his back.
I think you told this part of the story before
And I look
on
at
the
the
show.
I look
you
at the
didn't
guys
tell the
and
humping the holes in the wall.
I look at the guys and I'm like, are you gonna take that arm out, or are we just gonna sit here and let him do push-ups? So, but yeah.
And you have to use the polyurethane, like big armbands to keep them locked up.
No, we
when you bring them into the hospital.
No, well, we used hinge cuffs on them and they work just fine.
Yeah.
But
you can't do that.
Standpoint,
Yeah, you can't do that in the hospital. You have to
Yeah,
use
you're not.
big polyurethane suckers.
Okay, thought experiment time. This will be a great one on social media. Cocaine Bear versus PCP Gorilla. Who's going to win?
PCP Gorilla.
You think?
Gorilla.
Gorilla?
Yeah.
Jen? Clean sweep?
PCP. Cocaine's a whole different
Yeah,
bird.
right? I feel like
It's
Cocaine
not-
Bear just wants to go to Jersey Shore and party a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
PCP Gorilla is looking to tear
Now-
the arms
Cocaine
off
Bear's
of
just
something.
hanging out in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I have seen a guy on cocaine get a complete laceration across the chest. No damage to vital organs, but it was a machete. And literally, like, dude was fit. So it just sliced right through, total musculature. And Buddy slept the whole repair with nothing.
Wow.
Good for him.
Just a cocaine nap.
A little cocaine nap.
Yep.
We should stand to mention that Jennah also did trauma nursing at Grady, which is level 1 trauma center in Atlanta. So
Nice.
while she does cool drug stuff now, she also saw some of the gnarliest of the
Little
gnarly.
versatile background.
Yeah.
We had a guy one night years and years ago. We fought this guy. He ended up getting a huge laceration to the head. He got in there. He started cussing the nurses in the ER. Doc came in, stapled the head closed with no anesthesia. It was a beautiful thing.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get out
We
of
do
my
that
hospital.
Don't mess with my
too.
nurses. Don't mess with my nurses. Jen, we've been talking a lot, and you've been not experimenting with me a lot. You've had me on certain protocols that have greatly increased the quality of my life, and this is not an infomercial for you. However, I do think we need to discuss it because Brandon and I and a lot of other people in the community and around the country worked very hard on the PACT Act.
Yep.
The legislation to open up benefits to veterans who are exposed to toxic chemicals, biohazards, human waste, munitions, all cooked off while overseas and all that toxic exposure. You've gone through a lot of training about how to detox. And I don't mean like Hollywood diet detox, right? But like how to actually pull heavy metals, how to pull parasites, how to pull
radioactive materials, mycotoxins, absolutely.
Out all the way down to the cellular level, right? Because we've talked a lot, Brandon, Chris, like we've talked to a lot like people who like they nourish their body through exercise and through diet and through meditation and mindfulness and all these techniques. But if you still have a bunch of junk in you, only so much of that is going to take. Am I summarizing that correct, babe?
Absolutely.
I say babe a lot.
You know,
with
so sweet.
This is the most. This
He usually
the
calls
most,
me babe.
Yeah,
I'm a little
babe.
jealous.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, babe.
We're both. I'm equally like as distant in this
It's
situation.
equidistant. Yeah, that's
Chris
true.
is more cozied up over there. Yeah. So how I typically explain it is when you walk into a house, you're not going to just start decorating and moving stuff in. Typically, people want to clean it, get it all the junk out, find the problems, fix them. Do it that way. And so when you get into a situation where you're trying to bombard the system with nutrients, all you're going to create is more stress. And you're could possibly turn on things that the body is not ready to turn on, causing, problems.
What kind of problems specifically?
You can get lots of symptoms. You start turning on things that the body's not ready. So let's say you activate the liver and it's full of sluggish bile, and now you're dealing with, a blockage, and now you're having gallbladder pain. And I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios in that situation. However, the idea is that you do things the right way. And so looking at a detoxification system that's going to help you at every level, especially on a molecular cellular level, is going to be more beneficial than bombarding the system with nutrients that the molecules are too large to break down and they're just floating around in the bloodstream.
So what are like the worst kind of fad detoxes that you can do? What are the ones that do literally absolutely nothing?
Well, I wouldn't say any of them do absolutely nothing. Some of them bombard the system into a very stressed state. So everybody knows about juice cleansing.
Yeah,
right?
what's up with juice cleansing?
Fast
Bradley,
or
you've done
juice
a juice
cleanse.
cleanse before.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, come on, dude. 48-hour Hollywood juice cleanse.
I mean, it was a great beer for 48 hours.
But juice cleansing is going to bombard the system with sugars, which, if kind of people are more up to date on that now. But is it organic? Because if it's not, you're just basically sucking down pesticides.
Yeah, what if you're just doing 48 hours of ocean spray? Like you're just drinking ocean
I
spray.
don't think anybody
Non-combustibles.
does that. I don't think
Some cranberry juice for 48 hours. Yeah, we're trying to knock down this kidney stone.
We're really gonna deal with our UTIs today.
Usually
But
mine's diluted with
you
some vodka.
bombard
Yeah, a
the
little vodka, a
system,
little Tito's.
right? And so all that's going to do is if you haven't
I'll
opened
tell that
up
story.
drainage pathways and you haven't actually done it the proper way, you're going to dump all that into the bloodstream. And so most people get sick, and everybody knows they're detoxing. They're cranky, moody, tired, headaches, nausea. You feel like crap. And that right there tells you this is not the way to do it,
Yeah,
right?
you
I mean,
and
it's some
I-
pretty
you and
severe
I, like,
symptomatology.
You and I pushed back on a lot of the things that you wanted me to do throughout the years because it was exactly that. It was like we would limit the number of food calories that I would get, and like I was fine with like, okay, I can't do alcohol for a couple weeks, or you know, you can only drink water. But it was like how I felt every day. I felt like shit for most of them.
Yeah, you
Should
can.
you feel that bad? For
No,
most of these
not
things?
if not
'Cause
if
since
you're
we started doing the
it
self-care one, I
proper.
don't feel bad at all.
Yeah, and that's because you're getting on a cellular level of nutrients. So, like now we know that like there's at least 90 nutrients that the body needs, right, for optimal health, and that goes into I think it's like 17 vitamins, 59 minerals. There's like 12 amino acids, and then 3 essential fatty acids that your body like has to have. And then how are we absorbing that? So we can all talk about like the crappy agricultural system right now.
As we're
And
drinking
then-
monsters.
Yeah, right. You guys are. but the crappy agricultural system, right? They come in, they rip the topsoil out. You know, we don't give any of the nutrients a break. Any of the soil doesn't
Yeah, we
get
don't
a
rotate
rest.
crops hardly.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't get any decay
And you
on
do
that.
regenerative agriculture.
Right? We
Yeah.
don't have, you know, and everyone knows that putting in a garden, which we just did, you're getting like, you want compost, you want decay, you want like, what would we do? Those earthworm castings,
Mhm.
you know, you have
just gonna be,
certain
like,
things.
Cutting logs, like taking dumps in your garden.
Bro,
just to-
yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
I love that from Saving Silverman. When Arlie Irving's like, hey, boys, I got to take a dump. And he's like, we just go in the yard. He's like, great idea. Saving money. I love it, boys. May Arlie Irving, the gunny himself, rest in peace. Yeah.
There you go. But, you know, we really have messed up. And so because of that, you know, we are severely nutrient depleted. And the biggest piece and kind of like where the detox system that I use is really beneficial is that it actually gets fulvic and humic acid back into the system. And what that is actually a part of the deterioration and that decay that we're losing in the soil system. And what it does is actually makes nutrients bioavailable to the system. And so when you ingest that and you can get that back in, then when you are taking like beefy supplements or all these expensive stuff, your fulvic and humic acid can then take that and make it deliverable to the cells instead of just bumming around floating into the bloodstream waiting to get urinated out, if you will.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just talking about this with someone kind of on a smaller scale, but I was talking about how I try to make a conscious effort to buy local raw honey because like we import so much stuff that if you're not eating like honey like from that's local, you're not getting, you know, the different allergens that are out there. And so like I've noticed I experience less seasonal allergies whenever I'm eating that because it's being introduced into my body year round, not just whenever the allergies come.
Well, and that's huge, right? Because those bees are pollinating the things that you are exposed to.
Right.
And so it's broken down and given back to you in a delivery system in which the body can understand it. Same concept. Absolutely.
What is your thought? So I've been doing a little bit of research and listening to some podcasts on like it has a negative connotation, but like stem cells. So like Ways to Well is like a big place in Texas that's doing a lot of stem cells. Obviously, you have to go out of the country to do some of the more
IV
you know,
type.
progressive stem cells.
There's a doctor here that does them in Wilmington.
Oh, really?
You can get them placed in the knees and stuff like that. They're blank. You know, so stem cells are blank cells, right? They can regenerate into whatever you need. And so from the background that I've had is where are you getting them from? Are they from the right place? Are they umbilical stem cells? Are they from the coronal layer from the placenta? Like which part is it? Blah, blah, blah. You can get really into it. But Wharton's jelly has risen to the top as the stem cells that you want to get if you're going to be doing regenerative medicine. And so my thoughts is like, yes, but can you keep them alive long enough to get them to aggregate in the area that you need to? And there is some studies on implementing that with some nutrition when you're piping them in, depending on where you're placing them. Now, I've done knees before, but I've gotten fantastic results just with PRP. in
And what's
joint
PRP?
spaces. That's plasma-rich platelets.
Okay.
And so with PRP, it's basically like I could draw your blood right out of one of these.
Yeah.
What were you calling
Those
his
bulbous
veins?
It's road maps.
Roadmaps to
Yeah.
someplace. There, Camp Lejeune. But you know, I could pull that
Somebody's
out.
gonna get a tattoo of that now.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah,
We're
all
gonna see
over
some
there.
young, hard-charging Lance
Yes.
Corporal
Yeah.
who's like, man, I want my veins tattooed, and then I want the main gate of Camp Lejeune right up here in my bicep.
Yes, with all the toxic waterways.
Yeah,
right?
all the toxic water. Yep.
But basically, you can spin that off, and then you get that little yellow floaty. That's your PRP, and then I can pull that off and literally stick it back into a joint space. With I like to use this certain kind of cocktail to keep all that alive. Your stem cells are now swimming around with growth hormone. And some other things that revitalize it, and then you can attach it to the space and it starts to regrow the area that's degenerating. And I've seen spacing just like stem cells on stuff like that. It just depends on how you do it.
Interesting.
But
So
it's cheaper.
I've looked at both. There's a lady here in Wilmington. She had a torn rotator cuff, and she did stem cell injections, complete repair.
Yep.
But the way that she explained it to me was it's not just a one and done shot. It was 3 shots over 18 months. And that's that's kind of almost like a misconception because a lot of people don't know that. Like you hear people talking about stem cell, but it's multiple injections over a course of time.
Well, and as a provider, you do sit down with the person that's interested, and you explain to them like, hey, it may work in the first, it might work in the second,
Right.
you're probably gonna have to do 3,
Sure.
and you're looking at probably $5,000 a pop, if not more. So, you know, it's definitely something that's like, do your research, make sure that the people that you're going to have done their research, that where are they getting it from? You know, are they using Wharton's jelly, which right now seems to be rising to the top as the best? You know, and what does that look like? And then how are they feeding it, and how are they keeping it, you know, going? And that's where PRP is helpful because it already has the growth hormone. And then I put some vitamins in mine, and some people get into something called prolotherapy, which is where you input ozone into it as well. And ozone is O3. So when that breaks apart, it actually increases water, hydrogen peroxide, and oxygen to the bed of the area, aggravating and irritating scar tissue and allowing growth over the scar tissue too. So that's another, you know, implementation you can use. That's cool.
For those who didn't do chemistry for Marines, O3 is 3 oxygen molecules.
Correct.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Good job. Good job.
So, how is it
Babe, I listen.
that you are so smart and got tricked into marrying Rob?
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
question.
Fair question. Fair question. I'm sitting here thinking.
Started out with a cocktail and
Yeah,
PRP.
yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I am way, way out of my league. She proves that time and time again.
Well, he just would not go away, and he made sure that no one else was available to date.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that
I had
happened.
a really good plan. She was
So it
seeing
was like marriage
other-
or stalking charges.
Yeah,
One.
right. Yeah, exactly. It was going to be one or the other.
Nothing says I love you like a restraining order.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. This is a testament
We made it
to my.
The courts were involved.
I
No.
love it. I love it. Where does the Wharton's jelly come from?
The
'Cause you referenced it a couple
yeah,
times.
the
So how does it? Because I keep seeing the Eric
umbilical
Cartman
cord.
South Park episode in my head, where he's like, "Come on, guys, these are grade A fetuses."
so that would be the umbilical cord.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of get
Well, so
slurped
you know, there's
out?
all those banks, right? Like when you're having babies, anybody that's had babies in the last 10 years,
That's
they've
where
been like,
Brandon came
"Oh,
from,
do
one
you
of
want to
those banks."
freeze your
Yeah.
baby's stem
Yeah.
cells in the
Product of
umbilical
the organ.
cord?"
Make a smoothie.
Yeah, that's different. But
Did you make a stem cell smoothie?
I did. Yes. Not an umbilical cord. We did placenta encapsulation. And that actually helps with postpartum depression. It's a major, major benefit to encapsulating placenta. But that's a whole
I think I
other.
got these gains. Just drink all
Yeah.
breast milk for 9 months.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Man, you can get it frozen.
Yep.
Dude, there's no level of things you can't do right now.
No, and it's really interesting because like I feel like I think that we've kind of, as a society, awakened a little bit to the fact that we do manufacture so much stuff, and we've kind of gone away from what's good for our bodies naturally, and it's also good for our minds and our our health, general overall health, right? And so like it's cool that stuff like this is coming more like commercialized and popularized, but it's also like a little bit disconcerting that it's not as popular as it should be. And my guess is that insurance doesn't cover a lot of this stuff.
No, especially like you were talking about stem cell injections. We're talking about PRP. We're talking about fulvic humic acids, supplementation.
Your TRICARE covers your Spravato treatments now,
yes,
right?
We just got TRICARE to cover for Spravato for veterans, and and veterans out there that are needing some major PTSD. And major depression issues, the suicidal ideations, these things, it's helping. And like I said, fourth treatment where I'm seeing turnarounds, and I've got veterans that are like, kind of back to doing some normal things again, who have been completely debilitated by, what plagues them,
What, I know that a lot of times we focus, and rightly so, on the veteran community when it comes to like PTSD, depression, anxiety, those things. But do you see like a lot of first responders coming in because they experience a lot of these same issues?
So I have a few police officers and firemen,
Fire people.
In my
hose pullers, get it right.
in practice,
Posers.
But is it the stress? Is it the trauma? I kind of go into and you'll see if you ever go on the website for Trinity Wellness, Porter's Neck, if you look at my bio, I look at like what's actually going on here and what's the big picture. And so when you back up, I think we've touched on a lot of stuff. Yes, people are impacted by their trauma. We see childhood trauma being a major issue. We definitely saw like, the World War veterans going through things like shell shock and all of that we've now dubbed, PTSD as this label.
It's just PTS now.
Yeah,
right?
we dropped the D.
We dropped the
Yeah. Hey-o.
2023.
Yes.
Yeah. We
Yes.
dropped the D. Got to go gender neutral on our
Yes.
PTS.
We have to be careful with our letters. But we're seeing also like back up, like what is everybody exposed to? Like y'all are all exposed to like gunfire, and you're breathing in toxicity from chemical exposures. Fire retardants are huge, I think, for the fire department guys. And we did touch on burn pits, but your overseas veterans and the parasites they're picking up, and the radioactive materials. I mean, I have a guy right now who was stationed in like the most radioactive base that I guess we have.
Chernobyl.
Chernobyl. But it's interesting enough is that wherever you have things like that, you have organisms come in. And so what was the first thing to grow back at Chernobyl? Do you know?
I don't.
Is fungus and
makes
mold, right?
What was
Because it
that
was coming in, scrubbing and eating the radioactive materials.
The Last of Us?
Yo,
Did you guys watch that?
Yeah.
Such a fascinating
Did you watch
show.
the quick ADD moment? Did you watch the Chernobyl miniseries on HBO?
It's really
I
good.
think we should go back and watch
I
it again
agree,
because
yeah.
it was so good.
I know you weren't
It was
inviting me,
really
but I'm going to go
good.
back
No,
and
I
watch
want
it.
you to come. We're gonna get
You can
hoodie
come
footy
over.
pajamas. Yeah, the four of us will be in the camper together.
Do some ketamine.
Do some
I'm just kidding.
ketamine. Yeah.
She does
Really
not
get
give
into
us
a
that.
nice disassociative state and watch Chernobyl.
And let
work through some
Chernobyl
stuff.
drop in.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And we won't have any
no
problems
stressors
after
at all
that.
there whatsoever.
Yeah, none at all.
But that's what we're seeing, right? Is this presentation of, what's causing what? And everybody wants to find one thing, and it's never one thing. It is what is in your environment now? What was in your environment? Do you have exposures? Do you have other stressors? And then, were you, influenced by like illness? Like some people all of a sudden are like, oh, when I got COVID, all of a sudden XYZ happened. And we have these events that impact people on such a level. And they're like, that's when I started having panic attacks, or that's when I started, having this cyclical vomiting syndrome, and the doctors can't tell me why, or, bowel issues, or like whatever the problem is. And so for me, it's always looking at this like really big picture of, what puzzle pieces are you painting to have this big picture of the problem? And every time I talk to a client or a patient, it's like, oh, well, there's more info. There's another piece to this puzzle that we have to figure out. But at the end of the day, like, let's do the low hanging fruit stuff. Like, we all know that we need less crap food, crap drinks, exposures that way. We all know. Yep. Get rid of them, guys.
Sorry, Monster. You can't sponsor our podcast.
It has 0
Monster.
calories. How bad can it be
Yeah, how
for
bad
you?
can it be?
What's that ingredient
Look, the
list say?
first ingredient is carbonated water.
No,
Yeah.
it does
We're
have
good.
taurine in it, and taurine is a massive producer for energy production. But you can make that yourself. You just need proper B12, and we can get into methylation gene 2 effects. But if you're using the proper B12, you can make your own taurine.
Yeah,
You
we
don't
could-
have
I
to
could
drink
I could
it.
slam this Monster, and I got some caffeine in
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We'll go through this list
Some
and we'll see
energy.
how many of them match up with the 90 things that your body needs.
I think I need everything. In
Yeah, I
there.
do too. Carnitine. I don't know. The sucralose probably isn't.
That could be a whole another episode.
It
Just
could.
having Rob try to pronounce different things.
We
on
gotta
the
bring
could
Matt
be.
back in for that one, right? But yeah, I could do it too because I can't pronounce. And plus, they're all kind of smushed together. Niacinamide, whatever. Sorry, babe.
Niacinamide is a B vitamin.
I
So-
said it right.
We're good.
Yeah,
B3.
you're so
Hey,
good.
this
See?
got vitamins
See?
in it.
Monster, you're
Look at
back.
you,
You can
babe.
sponsor Signal Fire Radio.
Look at you, babe.
Yeah.
So as a provider, so we've talked about SB3 on this podcast before, and so say, and I'm not asking your opinion on it, but as a provider that deals with kind of alternative medicines, like would that be something that like specialized providers would jump into, or just kind of like what's the outlook in your field of prescribing marijuana? It's been done in other states, but if it became legal in North Carolina.
So mid-levels, which is what I am,
Mm-hmm.
PAs and NPs would not. They don't have access
Okay.
to prescribe. So
Interesting.
it's not really anything to even bother to
The
come.
lobbyists
you know
say
what
we
I
have to say
mean?
recommend.
Yeah.
Never say prescribe. It's a
Your
recommended,
MDs
yeah.
are the only ones that are going to have prescriptive authority, and that's in every state. So
Oh, okay.
as
But
far
look,
as
but
I
we can't-
understand it,
and
you
there-
know,
We
your
can't take
mid-levels don't.
that question, that conversation a little bit further because I've kind of started to dive a little bit more into some of this research. Like we've talked about plant medicine, and in the very beginning, I only thought plant medicine was related to cannabis, medical cannabis, but there is a whole wide range of plant medicines out there that go well beyond just cannabis, and many of them, almost 90% of them, 95% of them, don't have any like hallucinogenic or any kind of reactive
So
type of.
I'm going to challenge your thinking.
Ooh,
Babe, let's
You
do
ready?
it. Yeah.
So, what is food?
Food is a plant and medicine, except for the meat. The meat ain't no plant.
No. So, that kind of comes back into like, what are you feeding yourself? What are you dumping in? Is it saturated with pesticides, herbicides? Glyphosate is huge. You want to look at documentation and research that is Monsanto's lovely Roundup that is sprayed on everything. I think they did a study recently of the OK safe in humans, which was like 0.01 parts per whatever. And essentially it was like one drop in a 10,000 gallon pool, right? And if you look at the content on Cheerios, it's like 143 parts per whatever. So, I
You
mean,
said
it is,
Cheerios?
That's what
yeah.
I heard.
Yeah.
I heard Cheerios.
Cheerios.
I like Cheerios.
Damn, I just had calls this
Honey.
morning.
Did you really?
Honey
nut or
nut
regular?
Cheerios.
Dude, you got to get them out of your closet.
Yeah.
You gotta
So
you gotta go.
I
gotta
think
get out of
it's
the
something
closet. You
that
gotta get out of the
people
closet. Get the
really
Cheerios out
need
of the
to
closet with you.
focus
But
because
it's good for healthy heart diet.
Isn't that crazy
Is
how-
it really?
Yeah, isn't it? But like,
All that
to your
glyphosate.
point, we kind of start to see society sort of swinging back. That like, okay, we went on this huge pendulum swing of like, who the hell came up with the dietary chart that said that the triangle, the pyramid, the food pyramid is the right way to eat, and then they updated it recently to say that like
Cheerios
Lucky
are better than
Charms,
steak.
Lucky
Yeah.
Charms are
Healthier.
healthier than a red steak.
Our government did.
Yeah, exactly the freaking problem because they benefit from the lobbyists in big ag and big whatever. All these, the 8 companies that own literally everything in the United States, they benefit from it because that's where they get their money to campaign from. So they're going to keep pushing this junk on people.
Well, there's
We're gonna
something called the
willingly-
Dark Act that they input in, like,
Ooh.
I don't know, 10 years ago to 15 years ago. It's a little bit old. I can't remember, but I remember there was major front running, tons of funding, and it basically said you can't know what you're eating. You cannot know something's a genetically modified organism. They will not allow labeling in this country for it. So you get to, like, basically, if it ain't organic, you get to guess if it's been genetically manipulated.
My thing is, I've been eating Pop-Tarts since I was 3.
Well, look at you.
And look at me.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
You know, they're great for like a good leg day or a good chest day. It's like
real quick,
pre-workout, eat
simple
eat 2
carbs.
Pop-Tarts and go smash some weight.
But that's our thought process, right? It's like if you look good, then you must be healthy,
That's
right?
it.
Listen,
Powered by Pop-Tarts.
I've lived on this earth for
You need a
34
t-shirt.
years. I can't do it forever, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to live forever.
We would rip on Evan in season 1 and season 2 of Signal Fire because he would always eat gummy worms, like nasty trolley gummy worms after he would deadlift. He'd be like deadlifting gummies
Sour
because he
Patch
needed
Kids,
the
man.
carbs,
It's gotta
right?
be Sour
Yeah.
Patch Kids.
All that
Carbs,
stuff.
baby.
I tell you what, we get some really good candy alternatives that I think you guys would enjoy. Here we are. We're about to start.
Unreal.
We're about to start evangelizing on our way of life. Come join our cult.
I like certain candies.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, candies are good.
Yeah, candies are good. Candies are good. But what is so, babe? What is the form of protest against all of that? Because the very common theme on this show and whatnot is like we're going to trust only so much of what is told to us, right? Like we've been
Sure.
active in what we feel is like legislation that sticks the thumb in the eye of the man that says, no, you're not going to tell us the only things we can and can't have.
Sure.
We want to seek alternatives. We want to take some of these things into our control or under our control. So how do you see it as like, what's the way to where you can still like be a normal person, but live a normal life or what we've defined as normal, but still protect yourself against some of these things that are very well researched and pretty well known and starting to make their way more and more into the mainstream?
Well, I think that's where, detoxification can come into play. Because you can't avoid everything, right? And there's certain things you're stuck in certain situations, and what do? You just scared of everything, or like who has the time to sit there and actually garden and make all their own stuff? Like that would be ideal, but that may or may not be an option for a lot of
Sounds
people.
like it'd be a full-time job.
It
with
is
the
a
way,
full-time.
With the way that like
I mean,
we
look
have
at the
our
Amish.
society
That's how they
structured.
do things.
The Amish.
The
They can build a
Amish.
barn in a day.
Joe
That's how
Rogan
they
just
can.
goes out and shoots his own elk, though. I mean,
There you go.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan has the funds.
But
to
Joe
be
also
able to
lives
afford
like on the road,
himself.
like
Yes.
and he has a $160 million contract. So if he
Right.
wants to bring a chef with him,
Right,
he
but
can.
Exactly.
So there was one of his podcasts. He actually talked about this, and he talked about him shooting animals, and he only shoots. He may kill 1 elk a year or 2 elks a year. Him and Cameron Hames both kind of do the same thing.
Is it elk or elks?
Elks, plural. I think.
Elk Eye. I believe it's Elk
Elky.
Eye.
Elkies.
Elky.
Elkies.
Elky.
He'd be killing them elks. No.
Damn elk.
But what he does, so he's got these big freezers, and he's got
Yep.
like 2 at his house, and he's got 1 at his studio. And he said, I have so much meat in these freezers. I give this away as gifts. When
Yep.
people come over, he's like, I give them like, pounds of elk to take with them because he's like, I enjoy the hunt. I hunt because I enjoy it, but I share that meat because it's so much better for you than what you're going to get at the store.
Well, we know that, right? And now they're introducing mRNA vaccinations into the animals as well. And so wild game is going to be, I think, a big deal for some people and finding farms that aren't doing this,
Or just go
Go to
kill them
your-
yourself.
Yeah, go to your local farmer's market, ask questions. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I try to do, ideally, but life is busy. And
Do you
Harris
shop
Teeter's
at like
close.
Bigger's Market at all? You ever go to those? There's 2. There's one on Carolina Beach, then one up on Market.
Yeah, so
I've
I'm
been
out
to
in Leland.
Been to the
So
one
Yeah.
at market. That's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I typically do
Good
like
place
the
to have a nice
CVU
kombucha.
Crab company.
They got beer there too.
Yeah. But is that pesticides in it? Sorry, go ahead.
Probably.
Brandon.
No. Yeah. No.
I like how we're all bearded.
No.
I like how we're all bearded
Well,
right now.
wheat
too. Yours
is
looks
one of
good.
the most sprayed things ever. And everybody wants to demonize just the gluten molecule, but it's not. Like, it's gluten because it's a GMO and then it's laced with herbicides and pesticides galore. And so back to your original question is like, how do we participate in life, but also manage ourselves? And so, like, a lot of these keto dudes and these other people that are super healthy. Mark Sisson is
Liver
a great
King.
one.
That really bad.
Liver King out.
Yeah.
But they live an 80-20 life, right? They're like 80% of the time you got to do what's right, and then 20% of the time you might have a mishap or something going on, and like that's the ideal kind of percentage of where you should be following, that the health cycle, or do the best that you can. Can you avoid everything? No, but then you can detox from it, and there's stuff out there that is really helpful. and binders that bind up the junk in your gut that's sitting there for however many years on a molecular level. And what we get down to is most diseases is the mitochondrial function problem. And so when you decrease mitochondrial function, the cell can't work the way it's supposed to, and you don't detox properly, and then you back up everything else. And
Talk about those two things for a minute. We got about like 10 or 15 minutes left. Binders and drainage, right? You've gotten very much into in the last year and a half. Like if the girls go out and they have like just a wildly overindulgent day, like cake and ice cream and candy and the stuff that kids want that we don't really like them to have, and we don't always have 100% control over their inputs. You'll come home and you'll give them a binder, which does what?
So basically the binders that I use, they're not charcoal or clay based, and so they don't bind out nutrition. So if you're taking a clay or a charcoal binder, that will absorb any kind of nutrition as well that you're getting. But if you've eaten something wrong, everybody knows you go to the ER, you get some charcoal up in that tummy, and you bind out the toxicity.
A little too much heroin?
Whatever you ate.
Right.
And that saves people, saves their lives in those situations. But on a day-to-day, and in that scenario, I'm using binders that utilize fulvic and humic acid to not only create any kind of nutrition that they ate in those moments to be vital, deliverable to the cells, but then binding out the toxicity that may be there. And so it's an intuitive binder and selective. And then they're not processing a lot of it because then they're going to let it out. And then drainage is super important because if you ain't pooping every day, you're not getting rid of stuff. And that comes from a hormone standpoint.
You poop a lot? Yeah, I'm a
go.
3 a day.
How about you, Chris?
At least twice.
Twice? That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Once in the morning, once in the afternoon.
Sometimes double morning, depends on how much coffee I had.
Double morning.
Yeah.
Double
right.
Pre-workout
morning.
and
Yeah.
double morning.
You get the good stuff here at Signal Fire Radio.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
know.
get the honest
The
truth.
Poop
honest
is
truth.
important.
The
Poop
honest
is
truth.
important.
That
Everybody
was a great book.
needs
Somebody
to
gave me that
poop.
book when I graduated high school. Everybody poops. And I was like, this is a great gift. Thank you. I still have it somewhere. Stuart Mickelson gave it to me. First time he's been
Very
shouted out on the
nice.
show.
What up, Stu?
There you go.
Oh, Stu. Well, Stewie.
I remember him.
I feel like for someone like you that's advocating for, people just doing these things that's going to make you healthier, it's got to be, it's like an uphill battle because realistically, you got to just get people to first start by making better choices on a daily level, right? It's like, hey, instead of eating this processed thing, why don't you make something yourself? Or, so like, I'd imagine that has to be frustrating because in an ideal world, you get people to take these binders and all these things, but it's really like, maybe don't go to McDonald's and have salad.
And we have that, right? We have that level, and you have to meet people where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are like, I eat fast food 5 times a week. And you're like, okay, let's back it up to like twice.
Sure.
And then you need, some people are like, I just don't cook. I can't cook. And then you're utilizing some of these other services that have like the little kits that show up to your door, and maybe half of it's organic, we hope, or
Sure.
whatnot. And so you have to meet people where they're at, and you have to say, like, you don't have to look like this shiny little perfect situation. But if you just back off a little bit, all of a sudden you're like not pissed off 24/7. You're not, frustrated with your kids, snapping at them 90% of the time. All of a sudden you're maybe getting a little better sleep, or you're able to like learn something new because you're not so bombarded and your body's not so overwhelmed with such toxicity and trying to break down this like, frankenfood, for lack of a better term. It can actually like deal with the fact that maybe you need to like pay attention in class and reroute some of that energy to those places instead of dealing with this chemical soup that you've been dumping into your system. So if you think about it that way, a lot of my patients come to me, they're like, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm irritable, I'm yelling at everybody, I'm popping off. This is not the person I want to be. And it's like, okay, yes, we can do a little medication, but at the same time, that's a Band-Aid to get you to feeling a little bit better so that you actually have the energy to make some lifestyle changes. But you can't sit there and go, I'm not going to change anything about my environment and I expect to get better. You have to. And sometimes it's a toxic job and sometimes it's a toxic relationship, etc. So there's so many variables and factors that go into how we all survive in this crazy life, you know?
Yeah, I'd imagine I deal with addictions a lot, or I did when I was a drug court case manager, veterans court case manager. It's the same thing. Like if you don't want to get better, you're not going to. And so you have to commit to making a change.
Yeah. And a lot of times just that step in going like, okay, I know I need help, but I don't know where to start. And having somebody just listen to you is like just the beginning. And we see that in addiction too, just someone to go like, okay, it does matter. Like my life does matter. It does matter that I use this all the time or that I want to put my energy into something other than, you know, the monetary very moment of feeling better that's fleeting and then has disaster behind it, you know? So it's just baby steps, one day at a time, just like anything else.
Good show, babe.
Thanks. You did it.
I'm going to put her up for best guest of the
Yeah,
season.
no, definitely smartest guest we've ever had.
Actually, in the last 10 minutes, I have 2 things to update. Number 1, Andreas Maxwell. We got to shout out Duderman Law Group because she was like, hey, she gave me this information on this COVID appeal for our claim.
Oh, did it go through?
Listen, dude. Listen. Let me tell you how wild this is. Put it off. We went somewhere. We went to Atlanta for Memorial Day.
Yep.
And like I was on a Wednesday and maybe it was on a Friday. I think
it was a Wednesday or Friday. We were both in the
one
office.
of the day. And we're both doing our admin day, which we talked about as being super important on Signal Fire earlier episode from season 3. But I'm like, all right, I'm gonna call them right now. I'm gonna do their intake thing. It was the last day to file these COVID appeals. The last day. I just so happened to call in. And my wife, my beautiful, lovely wife, who saves everything, was right there with me and had all of the paperwork that we had to send in immediately available. So like within 2 hours, I went from phone call to appeal submitted on the final day that they were taking those appeals. So good job, Duderman Law Group.
Yeah,
they
good job.
do
She
what
was
they say
on
they're
it.
going to do.
She was like, I need this stuff now.
Now.
We
That's
were like,
awesome. Now.
okay.
Which is the importance of consulting a professional.
Absolutely.
And trying not to do things on your own.
Ryan Casey said this very, very well. He's like, I want to be the very best certified financial planner, so I'm going to hire all these other good people around me who are the very best attorney, the very best investigator, the very best, medical provider. So that way I don't have to worry about those things, so I can focus on being like the very best CFP. So that was thing number 1 that I had to update on. And I don't remember what the second one is, but it'll come to me in the end because I really want to know, Brandon, about your recent Instagram post. You were splayed out on the floor and you said actual photograph of a conference call. There's a story there that the people need to hear in our last 5 or so minutes.
Yeah, I've with our friend Chris Sykes with Handyman Connection, came into the office one day to, I just had to do a couple things for him. And he brought one of his like workers with him. And he was like, hey, who was that dude with all the tattoos? And he's like, oh, that was the lawyer. He's like, I've never seen a lawyer like a bunch of tattoos and not in a suit. And so I preface that by saying like, you don't have to be like this, like cut and dry. Like, this is what you're supposed to look like. And so I spend a lot of time on the floor in my office because I spend a lot of time in my office and my back hurts sometimes. And I'm like, I'm going to lay down on the floor. So I was on what was supposed to be a 15-minute call, which turned into 45 minutes of me just trying to get a word in. And so I got tired of pacing, so I just laid down on the floor.
Were you the only attorney on the call?
I was, yes.
Yeah. So they're just racking up your billable time.
It was a lay person that would not let me talk. It was billable time at least, but those are very frustrating.
I would hang up, man.
And so instead of hanging up, instead of like being a jackwagon and arguing, I just decided that I would lay down and let them talk, and then eventually, what I've learned, through my practice of the law is that you have to be good at actively listening and, taking key points out of what someone says in order to, reinforce whatever it is you're trying to do. So negotiating, it's like a negotiating tactic. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is a great book.
Good book.
But yeah, so, sometimes you just have to let them take the wheel, and even though you don't want them to, in order to actively listen, and then you can, store that away in the back of your head and then say, okay, well, I hear what you say. This is our position. How is this different? and then they've got to. Some people like that phone call, then they ramble to try to catch back up. They're like, well, no, what I meant was
little
this,
cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you don't have to be whatever pretty picture it is. Just lay on the floor and talk on the phone if you have to.
Do you find that when you're on a conference call or a phone call that runs well beyond what you were planning it to do you like get anxious or stressed or frustrated? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
Which is why
you lay down. I'm going to start doing that because I get so like, okay, all right.
Because I start doing that. And if I'm at my computer, I start looking at what I have to do next or what I'm late for. And then I start trying to, I instinctively start trying to work on that so I don't get caught up.
Yeah.
And so I got to walk away sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's frustrating because, some people don't have boundaries and they don't respect the fact that there's a time limit to your meeting. And that, those same people expect you to be ready on a dime,
Right.
like on a dime. And so it's like, hey, you're taking away from somebody else. And so unfortunately, but again, that's why you have good staff. I'm on those sort of calls. I put it on mute. I go out. I tell my paralegal, I need you to push the next meeting a couple minutes just, because of this. And so, it's for me, it's important to, be comfortable, and it goes back to the toxic workplace or toxic environments. If you're not in an environment where you can do your job and do it how you want to do it, as far as, having that latitude to, wear jeans and a t-shirt and lay on the floor, as long as you're getting your work done, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
That's how I be.
I love it. Jen's the same way. Like, she has patients every 15 minutes. And like, if she's working in the office and somebody goes 20, I'm like, what the fuck? Yelling at her for her. Like, why don't they respect your time? Move them on.
But a lot of times people are dealing with stuff. I deal with some pretty heavy situations at times. And my patients know if I'm running late, it's because I'm giving somebody the time that they needed. And they know that, and I've had patients say this, I know you've done that for me. Mm-hmm. And so I understand why you're late. And I get that. And I've had people that get mad and there's other providers that are going to prescribe and move on and I don't do that. So you have to be understanding that sometimes if someone really needs it, and then I'm going to say, if we've said the same thing 13 times, hey, I got the next patient. Mm-hmm. I hear you, but if we need longer, let's schedule another time that's sooner.
Yeah.
And I will say, that part of, being able to be comfortable in what you're doing is just putting in the time as well. I've been a lawyer for almost a half decade now. And, for the longest time, I couldn't pick and choose my clients. I just had to take whatever came through the door. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm able to have that latitude to say, look, I'm sorry that it went over. I'm sorry that that's upsetting to you. You can, go talk to other lawyers if you want,
yep.
But there's options out there. But, I try to give everybody the same, great grace and latitude. And the same thing, if I have a family emergency, I would acknowledge and sympathize if you had one, and I want you to do the same for me. And so it's part of, that it's that journey of whatever you deem as success, being able to be comfortable and wear, not wear shoes in the office if you want.
Ever.
What's
I don't
that
want to put
saying?
pants
Like,
on
you
again.
can have it, cost
cheap,
money.
Faster, cheap, faster, quick.
Faster,
you
quick.
You can have it cheap, but you can't have it cheap, good, or fast.
Yep.
That's what it is. Yeah, cheap, good, or fast.
You
can
can't have
it
all
cheap
three.
And fast, but you won't have it good. You can have it good and fast, but you won't have it cheap, or you can have it cheap and fast and good, but you won't have, I don't know. But yeah,
cheap and fast, but it won't be good.
So this might be a good question for the masses, and it's going to be a question for everyone at this table.
Ooh.
I've used this phrase a lot, and I've had this phrase used a lot in my life. I don't understand what the hell it means. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
I don't know. No idea.
What?
I absolutely can.
I can. Yeah, if I have a cake, I'm going to eat it.
This
Why
comes
the hell
from
would I
people-
just?
this comes
my mom was a baker. We always had cakes at the house.
And you always
come
ate
on.
it?
Yes, I did, and it was good.
Just make sure there's no glyphosate in it and that it's organic.
No,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
one of
I
those
heard
stupid-
that broken down recently, and I cannot recall.
So
because we were
that
busy
is-
eating the
Yeah, we're
This is our
being,
call to
like,
action.
I'm just gonna eat this cake.
If you're watching on, clip on Instagram, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, please, we're
Let us
asking you, explain this
Yes.
shit to us.
Yes. What does it mean to have your cake and eat it too?
Because it
Guys,
makes no sense.
Great episode. A lot of good life lessons in there. MVP of the show is Brody, who didn't move the entire time.
He's all good
He's
boys.
he's the best of boys. Jen, if somebody wants, you've got it.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead. Give us a
So
read
it's
real quick.
you
Then we
can't
gotta go.
have the cake and eat it too,
Oh.
simultaneously holding the cake, while ingesting it.
It's like you can't
cannot
have both
two
things.
mutually happening simultaneously.
Hey, you know who Bruno Mars is? Don't believe me, just watch me.
Don't believe me, just watch.
I mean,
Just keep buying more cake. You know,
possession is
Like-
9/10 of the law.
That's
if
right.
I'm eating it, I'm possessing it, I'm having it. I'm gonna lawyer.
I guess I kind of get it, but it's right. Yeah,
It's being a little nitpicky.
yeah. Start throwing some Latin
Sounds
at him.
like, it sounds like a business adventure.
Yeah.
You wanna
somebody
eat-
somebody will write a motivational speech around this, and we're gonna see it on a Tony Robbins expo.
Brandon's
or
gonna
something.
advertise that. He's gonna have like little like knives with Port City Attorney on it. We're gonna cut the cake and eat it too.
Do you want your cake and eat it?
You want your cake? Eat it too.
Oh, I love it.
910-910-901.
I love it. Babe, somebody wants to get in touch with you. They want to get on your calendar. They want to meet with you. They want you to make them feel all better as you have me. What should they do?
They should call Trinity Wellness. It's Porter's Neck, so I believe it's option 2, 910-343-8424.
All right. Love it. Jennah Cutting, FNP, Trinity Wellness Center in Porter's Neck. You can always Google her and find out where to go to as well. That is Brandon Pettyjohn, the Port City attorney. If you need an attorney, he's the only one that you should call. This is Chris Bradley from Cape Fear Investigative Services. If you need somebody to dig up some dirt on your spouse, you should probably call Chris Bradley. I am Rob Renz from Signal Fire Media. We appreciate you for listening to this episode of Signal Fire Radio. And until next time, please go out, feed your mind, strengthen your body, enrich your spirit, and grow your tribe, and go be a Signal Fire in your community. We will talk to you next week.